for another Talk About It Tuesday. And this is an exciting time of the year. I know a lot of you are doing holiday shopping. So we're coming to the close of one year and the beginning of a new year. And so while some people are focused on shopping, I and other people who are in business are talking about strategic planning. So we're really buckling down now and thinking about what we're going to do moving forward into the next year. And if you're going to be financially free, that's something that you have to do also. One of the things that I noticed about many of my students and clients is that they rarely plan properly. And so they don't understand what went right, what went wrong. They never really review it either. And so they don't know how to plan for the following year. So I want to talk about a thing called, a lot of people call it a postmortem, but you can actually call it an end year review. It's important for you to do an end year review. Whether you created a plan or not, it's important for you to do the end year review. So I want you to go back and look at last year. If you had a desired outcome, a plan or strategy for last year, or even if you didn't, I want you to examine what happened last year. What did you do right? What went your way? What did you do wrong? What could you have done differently? What are the outcomes that you got? What are the outcomes that you didn't get? What things are worth continuing? What things do you need to abandon? You really need to analyze everything that you did last year. What could you have done differently? What things were out of your control? What things happened that you didn't expect? How did you handle it? How could you have handled it differently? You really need to analyze everything that went on last year, and you need to be able to tweak some things, abandon some things, pivot some ways, try some new things, add on to old things. You can't really plan for next year until you really review what you did last year. So don't skip that step. Don't talk about what you're going to do this year until you really examine what you did last year. So that's really important. So some people, like I said, call it a postmortem. I like to call it an end year review. You know, really examine every single thing you did or didn't do, everything you said you were going to do, and just, you know, really examine that. So once you have done that, and that's really important, again, don't skip that step, then you look forward. So you look at, again, the things that worked well that you want to continue, but you'll also have to look at changes you'll inevitably have to make to those things too, because the world around you has changed. So even if something was going well, you have to stop and say, well, how long can I continue this without having to tweak it? Or should I tweak it now? Should I innovate it now? Because the world is changing. There was a report on CNN today that they're anticipating a recession within the next 2 to 3 years. How does that change the direction of what you're doing? How does that change the things that you're trying to do? Are you concerned about that? Are you going to start, liquidating things and hoarding cash? Like, how does that affect the way you're going to do business? Do you look long term? Do you look short term? Is it a money grab? You know, you have to really look at the state of the economy. You have to look at the things you're trying to accomplish. And now let's narrow it down. So when you're planning, sometimes we have these big dreams. People say, well, I'm going to make $1 million by next year. Okay. So the first thing you have to understand in planning is that you have to, one, be realistic, right? It's not unrealistic that you can make $1 million in a year. It's just highly improbable based upon where you might be at right now. And so, we have to, I always tell people, and this is a funny thing, it's going to sound really strange, hurry up and be patient. And people say, what do you mean hurry up and be patient? Hurry up, meaning you don't have time to waste. You got to take action. It takes consistent action. It takes persistence. However, you have to be patient and understand that things happen over a period of time. And so when you look at it that way, I think it's easier to plan. So if your ultimate goal is to make $1 million, then your annual goal has to be much smaller because you have to put the pieces in place to get to the $1 million. So I'm a proponent of never having more than 3 to 5 annual goals. And I do that myself. 3 to 5 small annual goals that ultimately will lead you towards where you want in terms of your bigger goal. So, a lot of people have debt. So one of your annual goals should be to be, knocking down debt because again, we've talked about it before. You can't really invest and make money if it's draining out the other side. So it could be, I'm going to increase my income by X amount and allocate that money towards knocking down the debt, right? So that takes time. But that can be one of your annual goals. In the meantime, while you're knocking down debt, if making $1 million is your ultimate goal, then I'm going to create relationships with people who can get me closer to where I want to be. So what does that mean? So you break that down into smaller parts. I'm going to attend, certain functions. I'm going to make certain phone calls or emails and reach out to people and make connections. I'm going to join certain organizations. It's about establishing relationships that will take you to another level. Another annual goal could be I'm going to increase my knowledge base that will help me to get towards that $1 million. So what does that mean? That means I'm going to maybe commit to reading every single day or doing research every single day. That means I might join certain organizations. That means I might take classes. And classes nowadays, there are tons and tons of classes. I take classes all the time online. So you have to look at it like that. So when you say annual goals, to say I'm going to make $1 million, no, break it down into smaller parts that are achievable, because you have to understand that small successes breed bigger successes, and that ultimate success is, like if you say you want $1 million, that's the byproduct of doing smaller things. And so think of 3 to 5 smaller annual goals. And then I'm a meticulous planner. Take those annual goals and then break those down into smaller steps. So that way you know if you're on track. You know if you have to make a shift. Like I said, I plan so tightly. It's kind of crazy. I plan out my annual goals, and my annual goals I break down into monthly goals. My monthly goals I break down into weekly goals. My weekly goals I break down into daily tasks. My daily tasks I break down into hourly tasks. And that keeps me going, keeps me on track, and it allows me to understand when I'm on track and on pace to do what I want to do. It also allows me to see if I'm successful early or if I have to pivot early, which will change everything down the line like a domino effect. So again, this is the end of the year. You have to go back and review what you did last year. Bring forward into the next year things that are working well with some tweaks. Abandon the things that didn't work. Learn from it, whether it was good or bad. There was an outcome, and so you should learn from that. Plan meticulously for the new year and stick to it. Stick to it. You got to stick to it, and that's the road to success. So get on those strategic plans, and let's have a great year.